On this episode of Arts Weekly, I'm speaking with Lauen Nichols from All for One Productions.
A couple of scripts that we have taken to public and private schools that are consistent with the character education mandate. The state of Indiana wants all of the schools to provide something within character education, but they don't provide curriculum or funding. So that was a niche that we wanted to address for the young community, and to do it with theater makes it more fun and more memorable.
And Paul Haverman from the Niswonger Performing Arts Center of Northwest Ohio.
We haven't done a Nutcracker in our area for 4 years. And so I thought it was just time to bring that back.
Sure.
A great family event.
Everybody has to see the Nutcracker.
Sure. And this is with the Ballet Theater of Toledo. And so professional dancers who also are going to incorporate a few local dancers who actually auditioned for some spec parts.
This is Arts Weekly.
Arts Weekly is a production of the College of Visual and Performing Arts at IPFW, offering degrees in fine arts, music, theater, and visual communication and design. IPFW, the energy of arts.
Hello, this is Chuck O'Connor, and you're watching Arts Weekly. Joining me is Lauen Nichols, Artistic Director for All for One Productions. Always good to have you on the show, Lauen.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
You know, before we talk about the season over there at All for One Productions, you already started. You already opened and closed a show.
We did.
Ruth 2, two different adaptations of the same story.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that was a new venture for me. We were looking for a sacred piece for this year, and I was looking at past repertoire. We started life as a touring repertory theater company, and I had written a one-act Reader's Theater adaptation of the Book of Ruth some years ago. We hadn't done it in several years, and just in the last couple of years, a good friend of ours from 34 West, Stephen Baldwin, had written his own adaptation of Ruth called My Name is Ruth, and it had won a major award at the Fringe Festival in New York City last year. So we were looking at that. They were both one acts, and I said to Sharon, our executive director, what would you think of doing two one-act versions of the same story? They're just wildly different, and I think it would be fun for the audience to see how different two adaptations could be of the same simple storyline. They're both three characters. They take place on a minimal stage, and one is more serious and one is very, very funny, but they're both lovely romantic stories, and the audience loved it.
Yeah, so that there was really quite good audience reaction.
Yes. Well, many people didn't really know the biblical story well, so my version tracked very closely with the Bible story, and then they had that as a context when they watched the story that was set in 1945, and I think that it added to the enjoyment, because then they were kind of lining up the events. Oh, okay, this parallels with this, and it was a lot of fun to do.
Well, you know, speaking of classic stories, you have quite a few productions this year that are based on famous stories.
Yes.
And coming up on October 28th, the famous The Ransom of Red Chief, the O. Henry story.
I'm such an O. Henry fan. I grew up loving all the short stories with a little twist to them, and this is actually probably one of his most famous stories, but it's also one of his shortest. So I was a little skeptical that you could make a two-act play out of it, but this writer, Anne Martens, who wrote it in the 1960s, did a lovely job adapting it to two 45-minute acts. It really flies. But she's peopled this town with a lot of quirky characters, a constable, and the little boy has an aunt and some cousins, and there's a town gossip and a couple of bird watchers. Just lots of fun, small comedic character roles. But all of these people give us a community feel and a sense of, you know, how this little boy feels, and how he doesn't really have a place to fit in because everyone sees him as such a terror. And I guess today we'd probably call him ADHD, but in the 1880s he was just a brat.
But the background is, for those people who haven't seen Home Alone, for instance,
right, that they stole it from Henry.
Is that these two robbers steal this kid, and
they
put it mildly, they regret ever doing it.
Oh yes, they think it's going to be easy money, and is the hardest thing they've ever had to deal with, and it's so funny. We've got a lovely cast.
Right,
and
who's directing that?
I'm directing that. I'm actually directing everything this season, as it turns out.
Okay, so
Wasn't deliberate, but
and that's a good play for the whole family.
it's, yes, 6 to 106. There'll be something for everyone to laugh at. I'm laughing myself silly every rehearsal.
Yeah, it's a funny story, and if for those of us who have ever read O. Henry, he's quite a good humorist and a great storyteller.
This
so
has got
looking
so
forward
much
to it.
physical comedy in it, and the little boy who's playing the lead is terrific. So I'm having a great time. The audience is going to love it.
I think so too. And you perform that down there you'll perform all your productions at the Allen County Public Library.
Yes.
Very nice theater down there.
People don't know about that theater.
Right.
I keep running into people who say, "There's a theater in the basement."
There certainly
It
is.
is a state-of-the-art 230-seat
It's
theater.
very nice. It's right. You know, before we talk about the rest of the season, All for One Productions has a very distinct identity.
Yes.
A unique mission. And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we are a faith-based company. We were founded by a group of Christians who had a passion for theater and didn't want to be restricted to doing chancel dramas during a worship service. We wanted to do much more than that. And we began life, as I said, as a repertory company, doing worship services, doing dinner theater, doing conferences and retreats. But as we got a little older, didn't necessarily want to tour anymore, we began to explore the idea of doing pieces for our community. We want to have a positive impact on our community. And so the pieces we choose now, which are mainly published works, but we do some things from our repertoire, and we have also premiered a couple of pieces in the last few years written by local playwrights. I love to champion new writers, and if someone brings me a script that I think is worthy, I'd be happy to work with them. 2 different playwrights have worked with me over the course of months to hone a script and make it ready to stage, and doing a world premiere is really exciting for everyone.
And you have done playwrights. You do the playwrights festival
the
every
Young
year.
Playwrights Festival is K through 12, but
Okay.
the things we've done as home stage have been with adult writers. So that's something I think we're a little unusual in. That's not done that often in the community. But I'm looking at plays that are consistent with a Judeo-Christian worldview, that have a positive ultimate message for our audience, a message of hope. We're looking at things that are going to play in that library space, so I don't do the big musicals or the cast of 20 or 25 people. We're doing an intimate show because it's an intimate space. We're looking for things that aren't done every day. There are lots of great plays out there that would be appropriate for that space, but so many other theater companies do them. I'm looking for the show that perhaps has some name recognition, but it's not something that's been done here. For instance, we're doing Jane Austen's Emma.
Emma, I know.
That I have had. There's been so much buzz. I cannot tell you. People look at that and they, oh, I'm so excited. And yet I can't think of any theater company recently that's done anything by Jane Austen. I'm not sure why not, but I'm very excited about that
That's in February,
adaptation.
I
Yes,
believe.
so
February,
please God,
February 3rd.
the weather will cooperate with us. I'm casting that 2 days after Red Chief closes.
I see.
Never done that before. We're going to start rehearsals in November, do all the blocking, and then send everybody home over the holidays to learn their lines, hopefully, and then start in really hot and heavy on January 2nd.
What are some of the ways that All for One Productions goes out into the community and into the K through 12 school system?
Well, we have for several years had a couple of scripts that we have taken to public and private schools that are consistent with the character education mandate. The state of Indiana wants all of the schools to provide something within character education, but they don't provide curriculum or funding. So that was a niche that we wanted to address for the young community, and to do it with theater makes it more fun and more memorable. So we had a piece that was built around honesty and integrity, and then one that was about bullying, which is it's a hot button. And those were great, and they were well received, but they were also a little cumbersome to tour because they were fairly large cast. We had to have a bus to travel in. They were very time consuming. And so a couple of years ago, I proposed that we write some new plays that could travel in a Pontiac Vibe, because that's what I drive. So I've got 2 shows now that are 4 people in the cast. Kids or adults can be in them. no set, minimal props and costumes, very fast-paced, and
So-
they're multidisciplinary. So they address not only character, but there's a literature component and a science component. So lots of different things that the teacher can attach.
So the
lesson
high schools
plans
just need to just to contact you, and they can they can
and it's
set it up?
really
Yeah.
they're more geared to elementary and middle
Oh,
school.
I'm sorry. Okay, good.
Elementary and middle schools, because they have more time for us to bring them in. The high schools are so busy. It's
Yeah.
tough to get in there. What I'd really like is to have the high schools send their drama and their history and their English kids to see the home stage productions, because
Well-
those are much more appropriate for high school. And
Sure,
up.
and come on down. And you have a really, really interesting show coming up. It's not until May, but we're talking about the whole season here.
Yeah.
The Women of Lockerbie.
That's probably the one I'm most excited about. I tend to like the shows that are the most meaty and the most challenging. This will be one of the more challenging things we've done. It's built around the 1988 Pan Am flight that was
Pan Am
went down.
103 went down over.
Yeah, I think it was
Lockerbie,
one of the
Scotland. Yeah.
first terrorist attacks that kind of caught American interest, because it was
Mm-hmm.
an American plane, and primarily Americans who died. It was December of 1988. I was 8 months pregnant with our first son.
Wow.
And I know I was very aware of it, but I think I probably distanced myself just because I didn't want to deal with the emotion. That I was very young at the time too. But now I read about it and I think that was just the tip of the iceberg. Everything that we have experienced since then as a country and throughout the world, and yet there's Lockerbie, Scotland, of all the unlikely places for terrorism to touch. I said to you before the show, it's like a tank had driven through Brigadoon. You just, that shouldn't have happened, and yet these innocent bystanders were deeply impacted by this plane going down, and people in that town died as well. This production is the true story of how the women of the town responded and how they determined in dealing with their own grief to ensure that evil would not have the last word, and to create this beautiful act of love. I can't say any more about it than that, but it is a gorgeous play.
Right.
And I'm so excited about working on that in the spring.
It's kind of we're actually all out of time now, but it's kind of a timely play too, because as we're taping this show, Muammar Gaddafi was highly implicated in that incident, and he obviously was just found and finally done away with. So, you have a great season, Lauren, over there at All
very
for One for
excited about
Productions.
it.
I really encourage everybody to go down and check it out. It's good, positive
I hope
stuff.
they will.
Yes.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
All right.
For more information about All for One Productions and how you can buy tickets, please visit allfor1fw.org or call them at 622-4610. Arts Weekly will return in a moment.